Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back to the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. This is the show where I take a look at every classic Doctor Who story, plus a bunch of big Finish audio dramas, one episode a day, 7 days a week. And today, on the 6th of March, 2019, we are starting the 15th season of televised Doctor Who, returning to the televised story since our rather long divergence into audio dramas with part 1 of Horror of Fang Rock. Now, there are a couple of interesting things to note about Horror of Fang Rock as a story before going in. One, it's written by Terrance Dicks, who is famous for novelizing quite a few Doctor Who stories, plus writing original novels. He's basically, what I'm saying is he's done a lot for the Doctor Who sort of community, and he's already written quite a few Doctor Who stories himself. Second, this is the final story to be directed by Paddy Russell, who began her work with Doctor Who as director of The Massacre, or The Massacre of St. Bartholomew's Eve, depending on whom you ask. And this is also, oddly enough, a Doctor Who story randomly filmed in BBC Studios Birmingham instead of in London, which is just sort of interesting. It's also an entirely studio-bound story, so we have quite a lot of set design to look at. Now, what really helps with Horror of Fang Rock is that the plot sets everything in a lighthouse in an island. Now, this is obviously a very gothic setting, which is kind of fitting considering this was commissioned by Philip Hinchcliffe, even though this is the first story under a new producer, Graham Williams. Now, Robert Holmes is still script editor. He will be script editor for about half the season, before being replaced by a man called Anthony Reed. What's interesting about that is that, so you really have this gothic sense. You have, a dark, it's a dark night. This man working on this lighthouse, his name is Vince Hawkins. He sees what he thinks is a star falling from the sky. It's basically, he doesn't quite know what it is. Reuben, the man he's working with, thinks he's kind of crazy. He's sort of the old rough and tumble. And we are in the early part of the 20th century. Electricity is just starting to really, it's starting to, become popular as a way of powering things. There's this engineer, Ben, who's in charge of the lighthouse. And these are our three characters, at least for this first episode. They sort of stay here. They all, I don't want to say they all work together, but yeah, they all sort of work, they all work to basically, they all work together to, they all work together to get this lighthouse working, and then things slightly go wrong. A fog immediately comes in, and the power starts to go out. And with the power going out, you get this question: well, what's going on? You have a valid question. Is that, why are all these things happening? They're all fair questions, and we're basically building up to, to the time the Doctor arrives, and by the time the Doctor arrives, whatever the alien is that has landed. Now, we don't quite know what this alien is, which is, kind of important, but no one really knows what could this alien even could be. Um, it's it's stalking. It kills Ben, so we're down one person, and this is when the Doctor and Leela arrive. Now Leela is wearing different clothes. They were heading to Brighton, essentially for reasons of their own, and they got lost. Um, they they don't make it to their destination, and we get this real sense, that this real sense that the Doctor can't be trusted because he's he's new. He easily had the motive to kill um, Ben, uh, by scaring him. It's you get this this sense of just this real sense of dread, and setting in the lighthouse is great. Like you have all the shots have to be sort of tight, and everything has to be really tight. Um, the shots are very very tight, and um, with tightening up the shots, um, keeping us really really tight and close up shots, you get really personal and up close and personal with the characters. So, um, you really see their things, and the story ends with, the story ends with the Doctor, um, with someone being attacked by the by the by the creature. It's a big bombastic ending, and it's very very creepy. It's intentionally left very creepy. Everything about this episode just sort of oozes atmosphere. Like, this is an episode you could curl up, watch in the dark for a creepy sort of time. It's not a we're down to two characters. Louise Jameson is great as Leela. She's really developing her character here from the last time we saw her in Talons of Wang Chiang. She's obviously improved in intelligence. It's very obvious some time has passed between the two stories, and the gap, the Big Finish stories that we place in that gap, fit really really nicely with her character development. Like here, she's asking questions, and Patty Russell's direction is really good. Russell does a really good job of calling the shots, and just the story, and it's a really good first episode for the story. We get a real sense of fear that that everything is we get this fear that everything is going on that's going on in the story is just building towards an interesting conclusion, and we have a mystery. So overall, I'm going to give Horror of Fang Rock Part 1 a 10 out of 10. It is the 10th of March 2019, and I just finished watching Part 2 of Horror of Fang Rock. Now, Part 2 of Horror of Fang Rock, I guess I missed a couple of days. Part 2 of Horror of Fang Rock does something incredibly important when just thinking about this story. It adds more characters, mainly because the fact that really, from at this point, they only had these, like, essentially 3 characters. You get the problem of, you have the problem of only having a couple people to have, and so if you kill them off, you've already got the problem because you have Ben dead. Now, the paranoia against the Doctor is obviously still there because he's the Doctor, and he's still, he's still the outsider. You're still the outsider here. You don't have it's uh, it's um, one of those really interesting little things where basically the story, um, basically, um, it's a story where you have these three people. They are living. They crash. Well, they don't crash. They crash onto the island. Basically, they're led by this Lord Palmerdale character. Now, Lord Palmerdale, he's characterized essentially by being incredibly greedy. Not only being incredibly greedy, but he's was at a casino with this guy who's older than him, and um, um, you know, and he's basically told his people to keep going. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter that um, um, it really he doesn't care about them. He literally just sends them. He essentially uh, he sends them. He sends them right on, and they essentially get stuck on the rocks. His secretary, who is Adelaide, she's just sort of this prim and proper woman. Now, Adelaide and Leela have these great moments, basically, where Leela finds her confused because Adelaide's sort of the stereotypical early 1900s female character, and I mean that as a compliment. That's kind of her point. She's supposed to be this rich, stuck-up character who really doesn't understand the severity of the situation, which of course the Doctor just spends most of this episode um, running out, running out onto Fang Rock, trying to figure out what's going on. He realizes it's zapping energy. We're getting closer there, and there is a lot here to unpack. The Doctor realizes, okay, there's definitely something strange going on, and what he needs is he needs to know that figure out everything that's going on, because there's this real danger. And Terrence Six does a really good job of playing around Tom Baker's strengths, much better than he did in Robot. There's just that same you know um, it's one of those things where just the Doctor does his best to see everything through to the end, but he can't. He's really he's really been trying to make everything right, but you have you have Ruben not trusting him, and Vince kind of trusting him. Like, Vince is this one character who's basically, kind of that sort of dumb, trustworthy characters will trust everything. Um, you know, Um, it's a really um, really, he's really solid. This episode is just overall, it's solid. It writes a um, uh, you know uh, um, it's one of those things. Um, it's a really solid episode. This is one that you need to watch. It's a good middle episode. So I'm gonna give Horror Fang Rock Part 2 a 10 out of 10. It is the 11th of March, 2019, and I just finished listening to Part 3 of Horror of Fang Rock. Now, okay, Ruben is taken over by the alien. I don't want to say that's our cliffhanger from Part 2 ending, but yeah, that's basically where Part 2 has been leading us, that Ruben gets himself taken over by an evil alien, which, that happens. And what's really nice about Horror of Fang Rock so far is that we are in a situation, and it's something that Terrence Dix does really, really well, that we're 3 episodes in, the Doctor still hasn't actually come to a conclusion on what the creature is. And that's... Now, here, that works... There's a reason that works really well, and that's because it provides a sense of just extreme mystery to what could possibly be going on here. Like, we could just be, we could be any alien. We don't have that definition. It sort of keeps the alien threat in the unknown. Like, so our mind is trying to fill in the gaps. We know it feeds off of electricity, and we see it as sort of a jellyfish-like thing, a green jellyfish-like thing. So, we have things like that. We have an idea of, like, okay, this is kind of what it's capable of, but the audience never really gets to know what it is. Also, this episode slowly starts to pick off the rest of our remaining characters one by one. Palmerdale ends up dead. Vince sadly ends up dead because he's like, because Palmerdale's like, I need to get money to the mainland because this is what I have to do. You have to have it because if you don't, if I'm not able to get money to the mainland, my business is going to fail, and how will I ever think of surviving? It's one of those. He's like he's obsessed with his monetary wealth. The whole point is that the character, he doesn't care about others. He cares about himself and his money. So he ends up getting comeuppance, because that's what happens in Doctor Who when you're a character who doesn't care about other people. You end up getting comeuppance and really getting not getting beaten up, but essentially getting your life destroyed because of it. And it's kind of sad, yeah, a little, but overall it's something that really can't be avoided. Like, the character ends up getting killed. It's a point where everybody ends up, it's a story where people just are slowly getting killed. Like, Leela and the Doctor are essentially the only two being voices of reason. Here, they're the only ones basically saying, hey, this is crazy, you really shouldn't be doing this, because, there are
they're just, this isn't a time where this isn't really a time to be, um, it isn't a time to have, you know um, this isn't, this isn't really, um, this isn't really a time where, this isn't a time where everything is going to be fixed because, the characters survive. The characters, essentially, they've all built up this persona of, this is the point where we could die. Um, this is the point where, where because of our actions, we could end up dead here. You create a really, just right in the atmosphere here. It's really good. Again, everything, the direction, I've commented on it before, but the direction works off the fact that all the shots are tightly knit shots that we were going in for a tight focus. We're seeing characters through a lot of close-ups. This is sadly the last time Patty Russell works on Doctor Who, but I have to say this might be the best story she's directed, because it really does give her a solid chance to, figure out a directing style and then give, a good final farewell. So overall, I'm really going to give Horror Fang Rock Part 3 another 10 out of 10.
It is the 12th of March 2019, and I just finished watching Part 4 of Horror of Fang Rock. Now, what's interesting about Part 4 of Horror of Fang Rock is that as an episode, it is, it's one of those episodes where you really, you really finish the story really well. The biggest spoiler I can give is the very, very dark ending where only the Doctor and Leela survive. The big cliffhanger was Vince's death. He ends up killed. He gets himself, and in getting himself killed, you get this real, rather dark sense that that the characters need a lot. You get this feeling that, where the story just kind of goes, you just get this real depressing ending. There's this feeling of depression when you're done with the story. Like, it ends with the Doctor quoting the Ballad of Flannan Isle, which is a similar situation. You see all the characters, getting themselves, essentially, getting themselves killed, and ending up dead. Not only ending up dead, but also just sort of ending a story where just the story ends with characters who are basically, you have Palmerdale dying because of his greed. You have all these sort of karmic punishments. you have Adelaide dying, in fear, screaming. Reuben has been dead this entire time. It's what's even funnier is that, like you have the Colonel Skincell dead in a fit of greed, and the Doctor remarks that he died with honor, almost being completely sardonic about, completely sardonic just about these characters. Like this is a story surrounded by death, and you get this real sense that the story the story is just ending here. It's uh um it's not a very happy type thing. It ends sadly, and you know what? I really like this sort of just sad ending. The Rutan as a creature is really well, well visualized, and you get this sort of nice back and forth that, they are, they're in their war with the Suntarans. Um, they're at their um, you know, it's it's one of those things that the story just sort of ends there, and it's a really powerful ending. It's a really and it's just a really good end to a really solid story. You essentially finish, um, you know, um, and so I'm going to give Horror Fang Rock Part 4, the final episode, another 10 out of 10. That being said, we average it up to give Horror Fang Rock a score of 10 out of 10. Thank everybody for watching this installment of the Ultimate Doctor Who Marathon. Please leave a like, comment, subscribe if you haven't already, and join me next time when we take a look at the second and final lost story of the Tom Baker years, The Valley of Death.